Ebenezer Scrooge was his name. People said he held onto his money so tightly that the wonder was his hand didn't bear the imprint of the first penny he had ever earned. Scrooge was such a miser, he hadn't even paid to repaint the sign over his warehouse office in the great city of London. The sign still read, Scrooge and Marley, even though his partner, Jacob Marley, had been dead for 7 years now. Cold-eyed and cold-hearted, Scrooge sat in his office from early in the morning until early in the evening, hunched over the big ledger books in which he kept his financial records, and peering out to the outer office, where his overworked clerk, Bob Cratchit, worked his fingers to the bone for a fraction of what he deserved. Poor Bob Cratchit knew better than to ask for more, or even to ask for additional coal for the stove that never heated his cubicle enough, for surely Mr. Scrooge would throw him out into the street, and Bob Cratchit desperately needed this job to support his wife and children. Now on this particular day, the day before Christmas, Scrooge was in an especially foul mood, even for him. He hated Christmas, so when his nephew Fred burst through the door cheerfully exclaiming, "Merry Christmas, Uncle!" Scrooge didn't even look up from his page of numbers.
"Merry Christmas,"
he mocked.
"Bah! Humbug!"
"What? Christmas a humbug?" said Fred. "Surely you're joking. Why, this is the merriest, the most splendid time of the—"
"Humbug!"
repeated Scrooge, looking up at last and becoming doubly annoyed to see Fred's smiling face.
"I'll tell you what Christmas is. It's the time people like you, who haven't enough money to begin with, buy gifts on credit because you haven't the money to pay for them. And then you smile about it. If I had my way, every nincompoop who goes about crying, 'Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas,' would be boiled in Christmas pudding."
"Uncle, surely you can't mean that. Why, everyone should keep the Christmas spirit."
"You keep it. Much good it's ever done you."
"But it has done me good. This is the time of the year when people open their hearts most freely and think of others less fortunate than themselves. But, Uncle, whatever your feelings, please do come and dine with us to celebrate the holiday. We'd love to have you. Truly we would." But Scrooge had picked up his pen again, and he merely said,
"Good afternoon to you, Fred."
Fred turned to the door, first wishing Merry Christmas to the clerk, Bob Cratchit. Once again the office became quiet, except for the sound of the quill pens scratching. An hour later the door opened, and in walked 2 well-dressed gentlemen.
"Customers, perhaps,"
thought Scrooge. But he soon found that they were volunteers helping to raise money for the poor. "And so you see, sir," one was saying, "particularly at this time of the year, those of us who are well situated must think of the many whom this harsh economy has left hungry, or homeless, or ill-clothed in the wintry winds." Before he could continue, Scrooge interrupted.
"Why?"
I beg your pardon?" the other man stuttered.
"Why must I be responsible for every fool who has not better guided his own life? I say that just because it's Christmas, you 2 gentlemen, total strangers to me, have no right to barge into my place of business and insist I must care for all the lazy do-nothings in England. There are too many poor people already. If there are fewer next month or next year, it's all the same to me."
The 2 horrified men stumbled out. Through the open door came the sound of church bells ringing. The clerk, Bob Cratchit, set down his pen and stood. "Closing time, sir. About tomorrow. It is Christmas, and—"
"I know," said Scrooge, scowling. "You'll want it off, and you expect to be paid for it. Very well, Cratchit, but you'd best be here first thing the day after tomorrow."
"Of course, Mr. Scrooge. Thank you, sir," replied his clerk, who quickly donned his worn coat, hat, and gloves and hurried out. Soon after, Scrooge put his ledger books into the safe and locked it, and shut the office. Then he trudged off to the dark, gloomy street on which he lived. As he approached his front door, drawing out a big brass key, the first strange event of that long evening occurred. The heavy iron door knocker, at which he had looked countless times, suddenly disappeared from before him, and in its place, staring directly at him, was the face of his dead partner, Jacob Marley. Scrooge drew back in horror. He wiped a hand across his eyes, and when he looked this time, the door-knocker was once again only a door-knocker. He hurriedly unlocked the door, entered, and shut the door behind him, locking it securely. And then he thought,
"It can't be. Jacob Marley's been dead for 7 years."
He made his way through the shadowy hall and upstairs to his bedchamber, where he ate a meager meal while huddled by a modest fire. Then he drew on his nightshirt and nightcap, climbed under the high old four-poster bed, and drew up the covers. And then he heard a sound. Far away at first. It sounded as if someone were dragging some heavy metallic objects across the cellar floor. Every few seconds he also heard what sounded like moaning. And whatever it was soon left the cellar, crossed the ground floor, and began to climb the stairs. Scrooge lay hardly breathing, his eyes on his bedroom door. The flame in his small fire leaped up suddenly, and then a dark shape moved right through his closed bedroom door, and he found himself staring at
"Jacob? Jacob Marley? Is that you, Jacob?"
Indeed, it appeared to be the ghost of his dead partner, Jacob Marley, dressed as in life in jacket, vest, and trousers. And now Scrooge understood the noises he had heard. For Marley's ghost was wrapped in a long, heavy iron chain, from which there hung cash boxes, ledgers, legal papers, metal coin purses, padlocks, and keys. And Marley moaned and struggled against the immense weight as it dragged behind him.
"Jacob, what has happened to you? Why should your spirit walk about the earth?"
Marley spoke.
"Any soul who does not pay enough attention to his or her fellow humans while alive must walk among them after death, doomed to sadly watch the joy in which he might have participated when alive."
And the ghost rattled his chains, shaking the cash boxes and ledger books.
"This is a chain of my own making, forged link by link through my uncaring actions while I lived. Can you begin to guess the length and the weight of the chain you have made for yourself, Ebenezer, if you could but see it?"
Scrooge looked down at his bed, as if he expected to see a chain spread out there.
"Tonight, I have come to try to save you from my same fate, for you were my only friend. You will be visited by 3 spirits. Expect the first when the bell tolls 1. Expect the second the next night at the same hour. The last spirit will appear on the 3rd night when 12 midnight has struck. You will see me no more, Ebenezer Scrooge. But remember!
And the ghost began to back away toward the window, dragging the great weight of its chain.
Remember!
It backed right out through the wall and into the night air.
Remember!
And it was gone. For more titles from Jim Weiss and Well-Trained Mind Press, please visit us at jimweiss.com or welltrainedmind.com. Thank you for listening.